Hello everyone, how are we? Good, great, excellent. Thanks Bert, I am lost. Okay, so in case of an emergency, oxygen masks will fall down from the ceiling. Put yours on first before helping anyone else out. I heard that on a plane recently. My emergency happened when I was 24. I finished school, not knowing what to do. I asked my career advisor what I should do, and he said, you should get a degree at university. So I did. 3.5 years, $19,000 it took me to get that degree, and I have no idea what it means still. And I was kind of disillusioned, so I was looking for answers, and I went backpacking over various countries and continents, and I found myself in Canada at the age of 24. I received a phone call one night from a friend back in Sydney, where I'm from, and he broke the news to me that Chris, a good friend of ours, had passed away overnight, suddenly, tragically, and accidentally. And it stopped me in my tracks, and I wasn't able to get back to his funeral logistically, so I just ended up asking a lot of questions of myself. And the one question I asked was, well, if Chris knew he was going to pass away at 24, would he have changed anything in his life, given another chance? And I thought about it, and I obviously didn't get a chance to ask him, but I don't think he would have. He lived a life that was very consistent with his values. I then asked myself that same question at 24. If I was going to die today, would I ultimately be happy? Would I want to change anything? And I looked at my life retrospectively, and I realised that I wasn't happy at all. And it was very confronting for me to actually realise that. I wasn't leading a life that was consistent with my values. I didn't even know what my values were, and ultimately I wasn't happy. So I got a pen and a piece of paper, and I just began jotting down all the things that I thought would make me smile. That was the rationale. One thing turned into 10, into 20, into 100. And I made a decision, looking at this bit of paper, that I should just dedicate my life to trying to be happy. That made perfect sense, and it still does to this day. So, you're going to judge me, but I flew to Las Vegas because I've always wanted to marry a stranger. It's legal, so how can that be wrong? Long story short, I met a stripper mud wrestling. Her name was Crystal, and I proposed to her, and she said yes. So I went and booked quite a romantic wedding chapel, a drive-through, the Say I Do wedding drive-through. None of these people I know, actually. There was 30 people from my hostel. They just turned up. But the one person who didn't turn up was Crystal. Thanks for laughing. That's nice. Feeling embarrassed, but not wanting to miss an opportunity, I looked down at the crowd and I said, is there anyone else here who'd like to marry me? And there was. It was Chevali. She was the receptionist of my hostel. So she jumped on top of the stretched Hummer and we got married. We had a very awkward moment when Elvis asked us to kiss because it was the first and the last time that we ever touched. Which answers that question, I know you're wondering, which is no. So, okay, take away the materialism of this. It was actually a significant moment in my life because it was the first tick that I'd ever achieved. The first time I'd achieved something that was important to me, unlike my degree where someone said, do it, this was important to me. And I felt like I really owned the experience because I went through the process of getting this done, rightly or wrongly. Why did it take someone to die in my life for me to consider happiness or possibilities of life? And why is it we hear of people who are diagnosed with an illness or are involved in a car accident, and if they're lucky enough to survive, they bounce out of bed and they climb a mountain, write a book, propose, have kids, whatever it might be? What is the commonality with these people who start achieving things that are very reflective of their personalities? I think, and I could be wrong, but I think the idea is permission. They give themselves permission to consider what's important to them. And then once they've identified what's important to them, they make a very simple choice. I'm going to pursue that. Simple as that. Because they realise that we're very much accountable for what we do in our lives. We're very much responsible as people for what happens in our lives. And these guys acknowledge that. And I think that they would all agree, and certainly my opinion is that to achieve anything in life, you really need to, the first step, the most important step, is identifying that goal. Not necessarily knowing how that might work out, but just knowing why, because it resonates with you. And it doesn't matter what your goals are, because it's all very relative, I suppose. But have you ever asked yourself that question? What's on your list? We're all different. I mean, you don't have to go marry a stranger, of course. It could be anything. But have you considered what that might be? It could be something that scares you or challenges you, fulfills you, comforts you. It could be a financial thing, it could be emotional, it could be physical, it could be mental, it could be a balance. But it's such an important question because the first step is surely identifying that to then be able to pursue it, no matter what your goal is. Number 23 on my list, deliver a baby. I've always wanted to do that, like the actual, the creation of life. Not the conception, but the creation. But I was in a relationship where I was having a child, right? So I just put it on my list and I was willing to commit. Funny story, I got an email from this girl here. Her name's Tara. She lived in Canada. She'd been following my story online and she said, I'm pregnant. Would you like to come over and deliver my child? I started with no money, by the way, and I still have none. But I used my credit card and I flew to her hometown of Regina. Anyway. I went there, I missed her child. I was there for 2.5 weeks, missed it. It wasn't my fault, it was an emergency procedure, and the baby's healthy, thank God. But it was embarrassing for me because I'd committed all this time and my money that wasn't actually my money. But what made things worse was the media had followed me in Canada, and they invited me on to be a morning breakfast show there, coast to coast, across the nation. And I was suddenly on a couch the next morning, having missed the birth, and this male anchor was giving me a bit of grief. He wasn't on my side, and he was saying, "Oh, you must feel pretty silly. It's quite irresponsible. It's fairly laughable, really." And he said, "What are you going to do now?" And he said it in a very patronising way, and I thought, well, hang on, why is he being like this? I don't understand. So I just looked at him, confused, and I looked at the camera, and I said, "Well, Seamus, I came to Canada to deliver a child. I'm not going to leave until I do that. If there's anyone watching who's 5 centimetres dilated or more, let me know." I had 10 replies in 10 minutes. This girl here, her name is Carmen, she rang me up that day, said, "Come and meet my family." And I delivered her child that night. It's an odd story. Oh, thanks. 13 hours of labour and an epidural later. A little baby, a healthy baby boy was born. And as Oakley was born, I had one of Carmen's legs over my shoulder. I was there and I helped pull them out, and I burst out crying. Not only because it was a beautiful thing to witness and be involved with, possibly the most intimate thing you'll ever be involved with as a couple, but more so because I realised for the first time that I wasn't ticking things off my list because I was special. I'm not. I'm average. It's just because people are special. The world is special. You are all special. People like to connect and help each other out. It's very natural to us. We have this innate ability and desire to do so, but we just don't always find the person to help. And at the same time, I realised that my journey, by complete accident, was inspiring people around the world. These people, and I didn't know any of them, and I didn't ask for this, started sending me their lists. And I started wondering, well, how can I help? What should I be doing? These people obviously need an outlet to kind of identify their goals and pursue them. So I changed my website, and it's now an online community that's growing, and people are sharing goals and ideas, and it's beautiful. I'm really proud to be doing it. And at one stage, something happened. I actually got shot whilst wearing a bulletproof vest in Colombia. It's a story for another time, but it was a turning point in my life. I realised that I was very fulfilled and my journey had sort of come around full circle. And I decided, well, I think I'm probably ready to help people now. And so one particular guy who saw me on TV in Australia, I'm a big deal in Australia. I'm not. He saw me give an interview, and he wrote to me that same day, and he said, "Look, I saw you on TV, and I see you have a list of..." Or he actually said, "I saw you on TV, I've created a list of 150 things," which made him better than me. And he said, "Would you mind helping me shave my head?" Really simple. So I said, "Yeah, no worries." So I went to Melbourne, and I shaved Mark's head. Really nice guy. But what I saw in Mark was that, although we both had dreams and aspirations, we're very different because Mark is a quadriplegic. He wasn't always that way. He got bitten by a tick in Greece at the age of 30 and contracted a very rare form of Lyme's disease. He can't move a muscle in his body, he can barely speak, he needs a ventilator to sleep at night, 24-hour care team, etc. And as I shaved his head, I thought, well, I could be doing more than this. And I said, well, mate, is there anything else I can do? And via his translator, because I couldn't understand what he was saying, he said, well, I've always wanted to complete a half marathon. And I had these images in my head of, carrying, I didn't know. And I said, well, how can I help? And he said, I just need you to push me. And I said, well, what has no one else ever asked you, offered? And he said, well, I only came up with a list yesterday. So never having run anywhere near the distance of a half marathon, I thought, well, why not try and help? So I signed us up for the Melbourne Half Marathon, and a couple of weeks later, a pretty special thing happened.
I guess I just woke up to a different day. I guess my eyes just saw in a different way. And you were never to know that your red light was my cuticle. And you were never to see. So I'm cleaning out the rooms of my head and heart, and I'm digging up the boxes I had hidden away, and I'm laying them all out, and I'm made of out of so I won't wait.
It's the greatest... Oh, thanks. It's the greatest thing I've ever done in my life, helping someone. What a simple notion. And I'm lucky to say that now my life is dedicated to helping people around the world, and that's what 100 Things is all about. Why was Mark able to do that? Was it because he was lucky or brave? I don't think so. I think fundamentally the reason he was able to do that is because he gave himself permission to consider what it was he wanted to do, and then he made a choice to pursue it. And then why was I able to help Mark? Well, I think because in my emergency I looked after myself and put my oxygen mask on. I think that's crucial. But I think the selfless part comes from I'm now trying to help people with their oxygen masks, and I think that's what life's about, helping each other. And that's why an event like this is so perfect, to be honest. I'll leave you with this story, but it's very apt. It was born out of the Patel family and it only happened in the last couple of weeks. When I was speaking to Roman about this event, he said, I'd like to be able to help you tick something from your list. And I thought, that's fantastic. So he introduced me to two guys called Jerry and Jordan from Cirque du Soleil, who noticed that on my list, number 48 was to act in a play. I just come from Sydney. There's not many people there. So I was quite, blown over to be speaking to these guys. And they said, well, look, we know you want to be in a play. Would you consider being in a Cirque du Soleil show? I can't even cartwheel. But I said yes. And this is what happened. I think we can probably roll this. So after 24 hours of traveling, I am in Las Vegas. Why? Well, number 48 on my list is to act in a play. And after the kind people of Patel introduced me to the kind people of Cirque du Soleil, I have somehow and very bizarrely been offered a role in Zumanity for tomorrow night. Oh, I'm excited. All right. It's the end of day one here in Vegas. I'm in a beautiful hotel room somewhere in a giant pyramid. I flew from Australia. I then met Pierre from Zumanity and from Cirque du Soleil.
We're going to go backstage and I'll bring you to the costume department because they want to see you. They have things that they would like you to try.
Then I watched the show, and the show was breathtaking. It was really funny, and everyone was just spinning and twirling, and there was loads of nudity. I didn't quite realise how much nudity there'd be, just quietly. But that was great too, to be fair. It's just that I'm now going to be involved in that tomorrow. That's the really I have to deal with that tonight. So today's a day of Zumanity, the actual performance. I'm going to the theatre now for a dress rehearsal. I've also been next to the pool this morning and I'm completely sunburned down my front, so I'm going to look like an idiot. Hello. I'm nervous.
You're nervous?
And excited.
That's all right, don't make you less nervous.
Oh, okay, good. So it's about midnight. I've done 2 shows tonight for Cirque du Soleil. And I've been near naked, I've been a boxer, I've been introduced to an orgy, and thank you very much. This man was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So for me, that's number 48, act in a play with Cirque du Soleil. Tick.
Check. 48.
Thank you.
I want to be at the 69.
It's just ridiculous. Thanks. Thank you. Obviously, thank you, Roman. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Jordan. I never in my life did I think I'd be stuck in between 2 blokes in an orgy, but there you go. The world's an amazing place, and I think the question that prompts it all is simply what's on your list. Please consider that. The question could change your own life, and I think it could change the life of those around you. Thank you.